When addiction is a main cause of huge problems in a community, it becomes vital that something is done about it. I'm Sarah Blakely, your host for the Portage Health Foundation Addiction Series. In today's episode, we'll hear from Houghton Police Chief John Donnelly, as well as Bernadette Yeoman-Olette and Kevin Storr from the Portage Health Foundation. We'll learn how addiction is impacting virtually all aspects of our community.
Day in and day out. I mean, our jails are full of addicts, whether it's alcohol, opiates. If it wasn't for substance abuse, our law enforcement would actually be cut in half. That's what we have to deal with, whether it's a fallout from family problems or if it's the direct result and people operating under the influence. As of late, ever since the opiate epidemic, our calls for service going to people overdosing. There's high-functioning alcoholics that work and hold a job. Once you get into the opiate scene, especially in particular heroin, you're not working every day. You have to find a way to subsidize your income. And number one way that is by stealing. When we go to a retail fraud, a shoplifter at Walmart, 80 to 90% of the time, it is somebody that's struggling with addiction. We've had them going out with over $1,000 worth of merchandise, which they actually have a list from other addicts that they're stealing to try to support their habits. When we get a series of B&Es, breaking and enterings, they generally result right back into people looking for money for addictions. It consumes most of law enforcement's time dealing with that.
It affects our community by putting a strain on resources. Those resources include the demand on healthcare in our community, as well as emergency response, law enforcement, judicial systems, education systems, and then most importantly, the human toll. And that's incalculable. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a family member of having somebody addicted. It must be terrifying. This is an immense problem in our community, and we have to address it. We have to work together as a community to improve our mental health, accessibility, and options.
How doesn't it impact our community? We've talked to, folks representing many different sectors of our community, not just from the law enforcement or substance abuse treatment, but employers, manufacturing companies that are trying to hire employees. I had one that I spoke with that, he said it takes 6 or 7 employees for every hire to pass a drug test in our community in some cases. The financial implications that addiction has on our community is actually quite overwhelming when you consider, the access to healthcare, the court systems, law enforcement, the burden that it places, the financial burden that it places on our nonprofit community to try to serve our mental health community. Virtually all aspects of our community are impacted by this. And, I think it's important for people to recognize that this isn't somebody else's problem. This isn't another community's problem. It's not, a downstate problem or somewhere else in our country's problem. This is a problem that's affecting us right here. And it's not that, that's not my kid syndrome, because maybe it isn't their child, but it might be your child's best friend, or it might be your neighbor. And I think that's an important piece to recognize, that the folks here need to recognize in this community that we have a real issue, and it is impacting their lives, whether or not they recognize it. It's impacting virtually all aspects of our community.
The toll of addiction is staggering. It affects law enforcement, healthcare, emergency responses, the education system, nonprofits, judicial, and that's not even taking into consideration the effect it has on families and children. In this next episode of the Portage Health Foundation Addiction Series, we'll look at mental health and how it relates to addiction. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, know that there are resources available in our community. Dial Help is a great place to start. They have a crisis line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, based right here in the Copper Country. Just dial 906-482-HELP, text 90635-NEEDS, or chat live with someone at dialhelp.org. If you're in any kind of medical emergency, dial 911 immediately. To learn more about the resources available in our community or to subscribe for email alerts for future episodes, just visit phfgive.org/addiction.